Okay, team 3, this is everything you need to build your part of the produce pod system. So, you need to get the floating raft, which is the piece of white plastic with the holes in it. The black pots that we're going to use for planting. You should find a few bags of seeds that you're going to use to grow your plants. And the propagation kit. Okay, your plant pots you don't actually need just yet. You'll first use these when you put your small plant seedlings into the system in about 2 weeks' time. So find a safe place to keep those for now. You're going to need a pair of scissors, so go get some scissors now if you haven't got any. And then what you're going to do first of all is just carefully open your propagation kit. So just from the side, just cut the plastic open. And take your propagation kit out of the bag. Keep the bag because you're going to follow the instructions on the back. So once you've got the pack out of the bag, you're going to take off, first of all, this is the bottom tray, and then second of all, this is the plant tray which your sponges will go into. You've got a bag of the sponges, so this is what you plant your seeds into, and then your plants are going to grow from. You've got a small booklet which you don't really need, but you can read this afterwards if you'd like to. You've got this Root It gel. You don't need to worry about using that either, so just give that back to your teacher. And you've got the first feed, so a bit of food to help your plants start growing in the tray before they go into the aquaponics system. And then this piece is the lid that will go over your tray once you're ready to propagate. So first of all, to prepare your sponges, you need to soak them in some lukewarm water. So not cold, not hot, just a little bit warm. So you need to go find a bucket. One of the other teams will be using a bucket as well, so you can try and share with them. And just add about 2 litres of water to it. So you can see I've got my bucket of water here. It's got about 2 litres of water in. The first thing I'm going to do is add the first feed to the water. So holding the packet over the water in case it spills out, just carefully cut away a corner at the top and then pour that solution into the water. And then you're going to take your bag of sponges, open the bag up and hold them over the bucket and tip them into the water. And all you need to do is just give them a little bit of a soak. So we don't want the sponges to be too wet. We just need them to be moist enough that they won't dry out so that the plants will start to grow in them. So you can leave the sponges in there for maybe 5 or 10 minutes. Just let them soak up a little bit of the water. And then when they look nice and wet, you're going to take them out one by one and just squeeze off any excess water so they're damp but they're not too wet. And one by one, place them carefully into the holes in the propagation tray. So just squeezing it out, a gentle squeeze, and then put them into the propagation tray. Once you've put all the sponges into the tray, you want to keep this bucket of water. You're going to use that again in a few minutes, but just put that to one side for now. And the next thing that we're going to do is plant the seeds. Now we're ready to plant the seeds. So a little tip for you, if you get a piece of paper, first of all, you can pour the seeds onto this. It makes it a little bit easier. Take your piece of paper and just fold it in half before you start and make a nice sharp crease along the middle of it. and then lay it back out flat for now. I've got 3 different types of seed here. And what we're actually going to do today is we're going to start one of the experiments that you'll be doing over the next few weeks. So I'm going to start with the spinach seed because they're nice and big and easy. And I'm just going to pour those carefully onto the piece of white paper. And what we're aiming to do is to plant 2 rows of each seed. So I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 rows along the long part of the tray. So I'm going to do 2 spinach, 2 lettuce and 2 basil across. So take 1 seed for the spinach and place it into the hole, and do this for both of your rows. Dropped one there. Okay, so now I've got 2 rows of spinach seed. What I'm going to do with the rest of these seeds is now use that fold in the middle to help me pour back into the bag. So if you get one person to hold the bag open carefully, somebody else can pick up the piece of paper and gently pour the seeds down that fold back into the bag. Give them a shake and then seal that back up, so press it back together at the top. And then we're going to do the same for the lettuce and the basil. So I'll just pour my lettuce seeds out. Now, some seeds are quite big, some like lettuce and basil are very small. So don't worry too much about doing 1 seed at a time. Try and get 2 or 3 in each hole. So I'm just going to actually use my finger, and they will stick a little bit to my finger, and then I'm going to brush them into each hole. So sticking on, getting about 2 or 3, and then brushing them into the hole. So I've now planted 2 rows of lettuce seed. I'm just going to again carefully use that fold in the piece of paper and tip them back into the bag. So we're not using all of the seeds because we're going to do some more experiments over the next few weeks. So we want to keep some seeds that we're going to use again next time. So carefully press the top of the bag together. And then last of all, I'm just going to start planting up my basil seeds for these last 2 rows in exactly the same way. And the basil seeds, just like the lettuce, these are really, really tiny. So just stick a few onto your finger and then just drop them gently into the hole. I've finished planting the basil seeds now, and I've put them back into the packet, so I've got my seeds saved for next time. The final thing that I need to do with the sponges is actually cover up the holes. So if you think about a seed growing underground, it's actually completely covered under the soil. So a seed actually needs it to be quite dark in order to germinate, which is when it starts to grow. And then eventually it will need some light. But first of all, we need to cover them over. So the way we do this is we just tear a small piece off the corner of the plug and then push that into the top of the hole. So very gently and carefully, so as not to break the sponge, just tear off a small piece each time and then push it into the hole at the top. Okay, so I've finished planting all of my seeds now, and I've just tipped the basil back into the packet. So make sure that you keep your seeds somewhere in a safe place, because you're going to use them again in a few weeks' time to do another experiment. the next step is to label your propagation tray. So in order not to forget what you've planted where, you're going to write the name of each plant, each seed that you've put in, so you know which row is which. So I'm just using some post-it notes here. You could use some sticky labels or stick some paper onto the tray, and check with your teacher now to see what you've got. Okay, so once you've got your labels or your post-its, we've got lettuce, spinach and basil in this tray. So I'm going to write that onto my post-it notes. So I'll write spinach first of all. That's the first one that I did. And I'm just going to stick that on the side here between the first two rows. So these two rows are my rows of spinach. The next one that I did was lettuce. So I'll write on lettuce, and again, the third and the fourth row of my tray I've got lettuce in, so I'm going to stick the label between the two of them. And then finally, I had basil, so I'm going to stick that between the final two rows on the tray. These two rows have got my basil in. And then every time that you plant seeds, it's good practice to write the date on that you put the seeds in. So I'm going to write today's date. I'll just write the word date for now. And then you can just put that somewhere, maybe at the front or on the side of your tray, so that you can check and remember what date you planted. And most plants take about 2 weeks to grow into small seedlings. And they need that long before they've got a little bit of root and they're ready to go into the aquaponics system. Okay, so now we've got our tray full of our sponges. We've put the seeds into the holes. We've labelled which row is which, and we've covered the seeds with a small amount of the sponge so they're nice and dark. We now need to add a little bit of water to the tray so that our plants have got some water to grow into. So I'm going to just carefully lift the top tray out to one side. And then I've got my bucket of water from earlier back here. So this is the water that we soaked the sponges in with the feed solution. And I'm just very carefully going to pour the water into the tray just about 1 centimetre deep. So we don't want to fill the tray, it will be too much for the plants. So very carefully, keeping the bucket as close to the tray as you can, pour the water in until it's about 1 centimetre high. And then that water's done with now, so you can pour that away down the sink. And then carefully again, just place the tray of sponges back into the bottom tray. And the last thing that you need to do with your propagation tray is put the lid on. So the lid is going to make it humid, so keep it warm and moist and damp for your plants to start to grow. So this green piece on the top changes to open and closed. It's probably difficult to see here, but if you look on your tray, you'll find that there's 4 holes in the piece of green plastic at the top, and underneath in the clear plastic there are 4 holes as well. So as you twist the green plastic around, you should be able to line it up over the holes so that the holes are open, or move it away so that the holes are covered. So we want to start with the holes covered, so make sure that the green piece of plastic is not over the holes, it's just over the plastic, so it's sealed. And then just place your tray, your lid, carefully over the top of your tray. So you're going to keep the tray on with the plastic holes covered, so the lid closed, for about 2 or 3 days. In 2 or 3 days' time, you're going to turn the piece of green plastic so that the holes are open and uncovered. And then you're going to leave that for maybe another 2 or 3 days, but what you need to look out for is the signs of the first bits of plant growing through. So as soon as you start to see small green shoots, you can take the lid off and you don't need it anymore for these plants to grow. Just keep it in a safe place for the next time that you start to grow more seedlings. Okay, so now your propagation tray is all set up. What you need to do now is find a warm sunny spot for your plants to grow. So if you've got a windowsill in your classroom, that would be perfect. Just put it in there and leave it there for the next couple of weeks, making sure to keep an eye on your plants. So checking for when you're going to open your lid, when you're going to take your lid off, and then also checking that there's enough water. So if the tray is sitting in the sun, the water might start to evaporate. So you might need to add a little bit more water, but never more than 1 centimetre deep in the bottom of the tray. And then in about 2 weeks' time, these plants should be ready to go into the system, and you'll be doing that as part of one of your experiments in your Aquaponics challenge. When it comes to putting the plants into the system, you're going to carefully take out whichever plants you choose to use. So you've only got 10 holes in your produce pod, so you could pick 3 basil, 3 lettuce, 3 spinach, and then maybe 1 extra, and take the sponge gently out of the hole in the tray. And this is where you then need to get your plant pots, and you just put your sponge into the pot, and then that's going to go into your floating raft in the system. If you haven't got a windowsill or somewhere suitable in your classroom, another option for now is to actually use the produce pod system itself. So when you've finished here, you're going to take the raft over to the system and place that on the top. And once your tray is ready, you can use the lights, the LED lights on the system, and place this propagation tray on the floating raft underneath the lights, and your plants can grow there instead.